Okay, here we go. Wednesday night class, February 15th, 2012. We'll read a teshoubah from YAM HAGADOL. It's a book of Sheilot Shavot from Rabbi Ya'akob Moshe Toledano. We've discussed them in the past, so we'll avoid the history lesson for the moment. Siman Kaftet. נשאלתי אם אפשר לשאת ידי חובה בברכות וקריאת שמע ותפילה ותקיעת שופר ומקרא megillah וכיוצא בשמיעה מהגרמפון פונוגרף וכן לעניין קול באישה ערווה והזכרת שם שמיים לבטלה וכיוצא אם יש איסור בקול הנשמע מן הגרמפון ושאלות אלה בעצמם יש גם כן לשאול בקול הנשמע על ידי הטלפון או הרדיו ממקום רחוק. Okay? Good question. So, here we are. Okay. The book was published 1931. Obviously, it's something that was probably written at the end of the 1920s. Question is it, can a person fulfill the obligation of birachot, kriyat shema, tefillah, tki'at shofar, megillah, etc., hearing it from a gramophone, from a phonograph, and also regarding the concept of kol be'isha arva, or mentioning shem shaman lebattala, is that coming to play over here as well? Is there any sort of isur of listening to a voice from a recording? And through these questions, we also need to ask regarding a voice coming through a telephone or a radio where you're hearing something from a distance. Either one, with the telephone or the radio, you could be hearing something from the other end of the world. Okay? So now you're on the phone with somebody and they're making a beracha, or they're reading the megillah to you over the telephone. Do you fulfill your obligation or not? Now, a lot of issues over here. It's obviously one of the earliest teshoubot that deals with all this also.
Sorry, why the Isha Alva? What's the...
Well, we're going because we touched Isha Alva in the past, so I figured, also works in over here. Okay. So we'll see what he has to say.
This is a record player, right?
Mm-hmm. Phonograph is a record player, yes.
Did we do before with the following of Maran? It's him?
I'm sorry?
Is he the rabbi? We did the teshoubah following Maran?
Yes, we did. Teshoubah. In that particular teshoubah that you're talking about, I believe that was written in a memorial volume for the Sedeh Hamid, for Rabbi Hiskiah Medini. Okay, that's what that teshoubah was that you're referring to. teshoubah. אין ספק, דזה לא דמה לכל דאוב וידעוני, שהיה מדבר על ידי עשם חיה. Okay, obviously, we're not talking about, some guys sitting in a seance, and the spirits, and you have your crystal ball, and all of a sudden you start hearing voices, and a voice comes out of nowhere. That's not what we're dealing with over here. And before, because obviously, you could tell, people probably confronted him, oh, this is not good, you can't have it at all, it's not real, people didn't understand the concept, of these type of, sounds and recordings, and how could such a thing happen. It was very, cultures in many areas were very primitive, and when you brought these breakthroughs in technology, they were just floored by it, and many areas they thought it was the work of devils, of spirits, of things like that. Even if you read early descriptions of theater, okay, even from London, it's very interesting, because, the lights go on and off, and all of a sudden you hear thunder, you see something that looks like lightning, you see people, flying across, the stage, and to an untrained person who has no idea, they don't understand that there's levers and pulleys and strings, and, doing all this. They just think it's all demonic. And there's really descriptions of this from the 1800s describing what's going on and trying to understand. And people thought that they're going to, they're trapped in this theater and they're going to die because the spirits are going to come and take them over. So the same thing when you're dealing with the concept of hearing sounds through a non-live medium. עين رمبان פרק ו' מלכות עבודה זרה בסנהדרין סמכי. וגם לא לכל היוצא בין הקירובים. And this is nothing like the voice that's coming from between the cherubim, obviously. כפירוש המשניות בהלכות סוף פרק נשוא סילון של אש, היוצא עד בין הקירובים מדבר עם משה. ועין פירוש רש"י על התורה דהתם. הכל בא מכוח השכינה ומכוח הרוח על ידי העצם. ומלאכתו בכך גם כן. והנה לעניין עדות. כתבתי להלם בתשובתי לחלק חושב משפט סימן ב' שהיא מחלוקת בין הפוסקים אם מקבלים עדות על פי קול של איש מבלי שיראו אותו עיין שם. There's a concept that can we accept testimony from a person if we don't see him? Okay, because I deal with it in a different teshoubah. It's not the place over here, but something to keep in mind. ואומנם, זה לא שייך לנדוננו. It has nothing to do with our particular case, he's saying. דעתם להוציא ממון, או לחייב מיתה וחיוסה, על פי טביעות עינה דקלה, יש לומר דלה מהנה. Over there you're dealing with issues of, financial issues, or actually putting a person to death or not. So, it's a different concept, has nothing to do with us. אבל כאן, לסי ידי חובת מזוות, התלויות בקול ושמיעה. Here we are dealing with the issue of fulfilling our obligation in mizvot that are connected to sound and hearing. Kevan, the shomeya ke'oneh, right? Person who listens is like a person who answers. Mali hakore be'asmo befanenu. Does it really make a difference to me if the guy's in front of me or not? Mali kolo hanishmag begramaphone or betelephone or beradio. And what's the difference to me? Whether the guy's in front of me, making the sounds, uttering the words, or he already pre-recorded it for me and it's on a record, or it's live on through the telephone, or I hear it, sound waves on the radio. Either way, I'm hearing it. What's the problem? أمينان بسكة نون ألف ببيت الكنيسة شهيتا بألكسندريا شحزان الكنيسة هي منيف بسودرين لعنوتك هالأمان. The famous case in the Gemara, it talks about there was a really, we'll call it tremendous Beit Knesset in Alexandria, that it was so big that people, all the way in the back would not be able to hear the Hazanim when they were saying anything. So at the Teva, they would have flags and they would wave so people would know when to answer Amen or not. And you're not even hearing, and you're answering Amen. They did not hear anybody's voice. Just through this hint, by the waving of the flag, they were able to answer Amen. And they fulfilled their obligation. וטור בית יוסף והאחרונים אורחיים סימן קוף חבדל בזה דאף וחלוקים שנאמנו שם יש לומר דהדידן עדיפת על כל פנים הוא שומע. So at the very least in our case it's got to be better, at least you're hearing something. So we could just end the teshoubah right here right now and that's it. Obviously he doesn't. ואומנם לחשידוק נראה there's חילוק בזה בין הגרמפון ובין הטלפון והרדיו. But if you really look into it, you'll see there is a difference between these instruments. בטלפון ורדיו אין אכן אמה דמהנה. מפני דכל האיש הקורא בעצמו נשמע לאוזן השומע. Because the telephone with the radio, what's the problem? You're hearing it live. Back then there wasn't, they weren't really playing recorded things on the radio. Everything was live. Because the guy's there live, he's in the studio, or he's on the other end of the, of the telephone, and what you hear is live. Hagam shura hokar be, betimunato enam ro'im zulati kolo. And even though the guy's far away, and you do not see the guy, and only hear his voice, even though it's coming from a far distance. Lo ikhbat, doesn't make a difference. But the kol niklat be gramophone, but the sound that is recorded on the gramophone, kewar pasaka wa ha'ish. It doesn't have human strength behind it anymore. Vehurak חיקוי ותמונה מהקול ומעשה קוף בעלמהו. Okay, this is just an etching, it's an engraving, it's like a picture of the sound, and it's like monkey see, monkey do. Monkey doesn't know anything. You tell the monkey jump, you show him how to jump, and he'll keep jumping. It's the same thing. So this recording, you can play it 1,000,000 times, the guy's singing the same thing over and over and over again. והווה כהיד אמרינן בכמה מקומות אין משגיחין בבת קול שלפירוש התוספות בסנהדרין י"א וכן פירוש בערוך שהוא בת הקול הנשמע מן הכותרים במקומות רחבים בגבוהים והוא הנקרא ביחזקאל פרק זין הד הרים. This is basically an echo is what he's talking about. When you hear an echo, you hear a sound and it reverberates, so you hear it again and again and again. But that's not the real voice of the person. Only the initial sound was the real voice, and everything else, are not real.
Is there any examples of what could be said?
What do you mean? What could
be said? Like Havdalah or...
I wouldn't get to that. He's going to get to all that.
Okay.
Right now he's telling you how a recording is not the same thing as a live broadcast or as a telephone conversation. שו נקלב ויוסף מכוח הברד וחוזק הקול של המדבר ואפילו האחי לא משכח עינן בה והנס דזהו לפסוק דין על פיו ולעדות והגם דזהו לפסוק דין על פיו ולעדות הנה לשון אין משגיחין מורה דלה מהנה מזה ועוד יש ראיה לזה מדמנינה בראש שנה כבדד עיונה בעשישית אין מעידין עליהם. This is what that Masechet Malki, is this talking about like some sort of like a smoke signal or something? المعيدين عليه وفريش الشيء رأوا هبابوآش هاللبانة هبابوآش هاللبانة شنريد بعششيت تيمونتا بهجام شزيد يعني عيدوته هلي بسات بتشوفها هذا ورش موئل سمان ريش من بيت מכוח זה דהרואה בבואה של הלבנה מתוך העששית אין מברך עליה עיין שם ותשובת שירות יעקב חלק א' סימן קוף כף ו' וברכי יוסף חוש המשפט סימן למדה ולעיל סימן כף ג' אם כן הנפקד כבתה כמו שאין משגיחים בבת קול שהוא בבואת הקול הנשמע מבין הכותרים. So basically, it's like you're seeing an image through the smoke, through the clouds, through the fog. Okay? And even though you know the moon is there, we do not do idut through because we didn't see it clearly. It wasn't really there. And that's the same thing over here when you're hearing this echo or the reverberating sound. And it would be the same thing now when we're dealing with a recording, whether it's, recording on that phonograph record that he's talking about there, then, or we're talking about with a cassette tape, or we're talking about with a regular LP, or we're talking now with a CD or MP3 or whatever the case may be. We're dealing with a recording. It's not the real thing anymore.
Even a live broadcast wouldn't be the real thing from a radio.
Well,
I would think.
That's a different opinion as to sound waves and stuff like that.
Okay.
But we're talking about just a recording now.
Okay.
Actually, radio now, it's even a 6-second delay, whatever it is.
Yeah, on purpose.
The radio is not the delay.
No, the recording.
They delay the broadcast.
They delay it.
No, but also
They have to bleep it out.
Most phones are all digital now. Also, it's not. What they do is they descramble the sound with code, basically, all computer code, and then on the other end, it recombines it. Mm-hmm. It's almost like just replicating the sound. Mm-hmm. So that's like a nice kink to the.
Okay.
What's good? Maybe we can answer that after.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. تبتكلم شيء مشكحين بعد كل شهو ببوات الكل نشمع بين الكترين لعنيان عيدو في الماء إن ببوات الكل زي مصيدة حبال الشومية ومن الجرامافون في كمو ببوات الكل في قراتها في ميشوم نكبر عبر زمان راب معيتش نفسك كل هايش هيد بير بمخونة. See, he's saying, for him, he seems to be saying that a long period of time elapsed from the time that the person finished making his sound to what you're hearing. Have a day delay mahane. So obviously this is no good. بشو مصاطي بشلوت شبوت لقت حلق بيت سمان رج عين فاب شنشقال بزيد شنو هيو يوش بمن معارا بقولين megillah. They're sitting in a cave and reading the megillah. بأحد شوميع مرحو كبات كول. And somebody here from a distance is hearing the echo of it. He's not hearing it directly, he's hearing like an echo sound of it. V'chen b'shofar. Ten things, they blew the shofar and he hears it. Im yasa, does he fulfill his obligation? V'lo sheshama kol habara illa bat kol barur. Okay, he didn't hear something, maybe I heard a sound, maybe I didn't hear a sound, or something. I know I heard a clear sound. teshoubah. אפשר דכיוון דבעינן שומע ומשמיע ואותו בת קול שנעקר ונסתייד באוויר ופורח אין לו עוד קשר עם המשמיע לא יעשה. Okay, so he's saying no, he didn't, because it traveled such a distance and it bounced too many times that it doesn't, it has no real connection, from person A to person B anymore. And it was a dabar מפיו דבר אלי דבעינן שומע מן הפה وفي זה אפשר דעדים ששמעו בת קול של מגדף שאין מעידים והם בדין מקבלים בת קול ויש כעין ראיה מאריתה דדאי פירוש כל הבשר פרק כל הבשר והנה מה שכתב לעינן מגדף נראה את הסביר עליה כדעת הרי בן מיגס מתשובותיו סימן קוף من طيت بدلين معيدين على بيها كول أفشلوا رأو إتائيش. So Yosef and Megas seems to be saying that we take the testimony of a person, based upon his sound, even if we didn't see him. כמו שכתב בחלק חוש המשפט סימן בית להלן ונזכיר לעיל. אמנם לחולקים שבית אישם דקול אין דנין ומעידין על פיו כל שכן בת קול דלו. عقود بنيم هنا دعت اللكت كيموش كتاتي تبابوات الكل إنو موسي يدي حوبات هالشوميع. So he's saying if it's not the actual sound, you're not fulfilling the obligation, and he's based upon himself not only upon his argument, but he's basing himself not only on his argument, but also upon this teshoubah from the lekit. The lekit was Rabbi Moshe Hajiz. Okay. ויש לי עוד ראיה اتبراي ودبريها الليكة النسكريم من بسحين بيت إلا معاتاق وأبيهم مئيريم باعوا شبوحيه دلو مئيريم لو باعوا شبوحيه فكثيب هللوه كل سبآب إلا ها كمان دي أور كوخابيم نامي أوره لما ينفك منها لأنه دير منها أور دي ثانا هنو دير منها أور أسور بأورانش الكوخابيم وبيروش أما هري بن حبيب بعين يعقوب بعين يعقوب عين دا I guess has to be عين دا over here. No, عين دبري راشي. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back for a second. He's saying, okay, I have another proof for what I'm talking about, and it's from Pesachim. It talks about the light of the stars. Okay? Yeah, the light of the stars. It's far away, this and that, but it's clear, and it talks about Haliluhu Kol Seba'av. Okay, all of God's hosts are praising Him. Okay, and then it talks about over there, if a person can like make a promise or a swear that I'm gonna swear myself off of all light. Okay, how could you do that? A person like that wouldn't be able to even enjoy starlight. Okay, and we know that would be an impossibility. A person walks out at night. What are you gonna do? You're gonna cover yourself with a blindfold. You can't do that. And so therefore a neder like this will never be able to be a neder that can be fulfilled. Mm-hmm. So even though they're at a distance, but their light, even though it's shining at that point, but their real light is still hitting us here on earth. So he wants to use that as proof that even though the sound is from a distance, but it's still the direct sound. It's an interesting way of looking at it. بيروش ماري بن حبيب عن يعقوب عين دبري رشيد سفيرة دلما دجمارات وخبيم in the him or معصمام. The stars themselves don't even have their own light. كيم شمكبدين or a shemesh, right? Star, even he's saying stars are perceiving from the sun. So obviously his kochavim are planets technically and not stars, because we know stars have their own light, okay, and they're the ones that give off to the planets. Let's say the sun, we'll call it a ball of fire, and its light gets reflected by the moon and from the moon to us. So let's imagine the moon is one of his kochavim that he's talking about. So the same way, you can't swear over the sun, any enjoyment of any sort of light, because once you go outside, you're going to have moonlight. The same thing over here.
They probably actually thought that's how the stars got their light, though. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they thought the stars were getting it from the sun.
Right.
What's the meaning of this? What's the...
Say the reflection. It's
why is it bringing it up?
Indirect.
It's indirect light. It's like the same example of the moon, or indirect, or like the sound being bounced off.
He was trying
So
to
light's
show you
being
how,
bounced off something else. Therefore, it wouldn't be.
Okay, בהמתרס בלעדי כוכבים יש להם גם כן אור מעצמם, אלא שנוסף להם עוד מהשמש. Because there's two different approaches of the scientists. There are those that say that the stars have their own light, and there are those that say the stars have some of their own light, but they also reflect light from the sun. وزهو هنفكر منا لنودر من هؤلاء. ديلو لكسور لهم مكبرين كل أورامها الشمس إمكان مطار بورك وخبين كيفان شيئون أور عصمة إباهم كما الآن ديش لهم أور بعصمام دي إمكان وأسور هالنودير بأورام عاد كان دي إمكان ميزين الدون دهنا في كل النقلات بين الكوتليم وباقر
هخين أمين
يعني داخلنا كل النقلات بين الكوتليم وبالجرامافون تلاقي في كل لعنيان اللي سيدة حباشي معاه بلو لعنيان كل بإشاء بهسكات الشيء مخيوسه بخين يسير لأنه الدين لنودير مقول شل بلوني ومقول هم مشورين ستام دي موتار لشموع بعد كولو بكل النقلات بجرامافون كيف عندي اينام الا بتقبول بعلمه ولو كل ماش. So he's telling you over here that no matter what you do, no matter how you want to slice it, when you're dealing with a recording, again he keeps on saying gramophone, we're going to say recording, it is not the actual sound to fulfill your obligation. You cannot fulfill any yudei haba through a recording of, a recorded medium. Whether it's dealing with kol isha, so obviously you could listen to any female, okay, that's recorded. That's number one. So that one's out. Haskarat Hashem. Somebody mentions Hashem. It's not really that they're mentioning Hashem on the recording. Oh, wow. Okay, or anything like that.
That's interesting.
And it would be the same thing. If a person says, I swear I'm never going to listen to, I don't know, give me somebody.
Beethoven.
Mozart.
I was going to say Whitney Houston, but okay, fine. And now you hear a recording. It's not her.
What do you mean?
It's not her. The recording is not her. And he could play it 24/7 and he's not going to listen to it. Because it is not the actual person, not the actual sound of the person anymore. Like we said before, just an etching, it's an engraving, it's a picture of the sound. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important.
Writes about that. Aristotle writes about that also in the Logics.
Okay, Aristotle didn't have a gramophone.
No, I'm just saying about echoes in the cave and
shadows
of the person doing that.
Right, the mutar לשמוע בת קולו וכל הנקלט בגרמפון. כיוון דאינם אלא בית קיבול בעלמא. This is just a receptor. Okay? So I got the guy's sound, I put it into a jar, I open the jar, listen to the guy's sound. I'm holding on to his voice over there. But this is not real sound. It's not his voice. بينها الليكت برا بنس كريم نماز كعين رأيا ما يريته دليل حولين قب زين عمود ألف بيروشي شام سنو شيخين بو مايم من هاي أول بكيري وهو موليخ مايم لسادوت إنه يدار بتوخوه بيكلحوه مايم لهم دلا يتول مكوه كبراش كبر عبار كوه شوفيخ في خير اللحيم لهم. So he's bringing another proof from that same teshoubah of the leket. For example, an irrigation system, you have a pipe that's coming, from the water source to bring water to the field. You cannot put your hands by the opening of that pipe and have the water fall on you and consider that for nitilah, because it's not kawah gabra, it's not an actual person pouring, whether it's yourself or somebody else pouring. It's no longer considered the real thing. So the same thing over here. You have a vessel in between. This is the vessel of the recording, and that takes, that removes it from the status of the actual voice. Same thing. He keeps comparing back and forth. مزيج كان لكل شكار فساق قوح مهاشمي مشميع دلا مهني هبات كل شلول اللي هو سيد حواه شميع بيقولان بعنيان زي بكحو بكوح كحو يشحلوا في سبارود بشاز بخوسكي معين يريد عاس سمان قوف كاف هي سمان قوف كاف دال سمان يدحيل فريش عين بيت رابي بيت مكو مشنا ألف من عمريان برتونارو بيرك بيت بمكود مشنا ألف رمبان بيرك فاب من الخط رسيح هذا خط هدفاب بحوش مشبان. It keeps going in a million different sources. He's throwing them off. He's going back and forth. I'm not going to read every okay, every source. Okay, حوش مشاش. Top of the next page. شبك كريم. بكوح كلام حياب أخ حيوب شام هم الدين سرورات شحيابات هرا بين زيكين بكبر رئيت اللي دي هرا بقاون هم فيكمون هرا بينو يعقوب حيز ريحان Rabbi Ya'akob. He was chief rabbi of Tiberia. Okay, he was the rabbi of Chamir Watnin, by the way. Okay, this Rabbi Ya'akob حيز ريحان بسفرو بكوري يعقوب سمان ألف شناقع بزي لحكيرا زو عصماه دبرا Gramaphone لعيان هسكالات شمشمان البطلة بدورة دبرا هالليكت ومنام بدرك لا يشنما دين عنيان كوحو بكوح كوحو نسكريم شياخ دون ديدان بزي الديرخ ماشي حلقوها بوسكيم عنيان دينا دقامنه دبعينان شعوسيها يزيق بعصمو بقام شباه يزيق بشعات معاسيه بهشمعات بيكوف الدوار بخليه كموش كتاب سماع بالشاخ حلونين بحوش مشباه. So you just get throwing things at you back and forth.
The gramophone was what? A recorder?
Gramophone.
The gramophone was what?
First record player.
Record player. The old
Yeah,
Victrola. Can we bring one up from the basement and show it to
you
you?
still have it?
I have one.
And they have that.
So what were they listening to?
No, they don't have full ears.
So what were they listening to on this gramophone?
Anything. Records.
Records.
And saying what? You can't what? You can't answer? You can't...
Yeah. If you hear Berachot, let's say, for example, the guy made a recording of Megillah Esther.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to Knesset. I'm home. I'm sick in bed. I'm going to play this. Nope. No good. Simple.
Right, okay.
Got a point.
No, that's exactly what it is.
And, sorry, the radio?
He didn't get to the radio yet.
Oh, I didn't get the radio, okay.
Right now, he wants to throw
All
the whole concept of gramophone out.
Right, so even
And
somebody
he's
on
bringing
the tape,
and
anything...
right, so that would, for us, it would be tape or CD or
Right,
MP3
the
or whatever.
rabbi says, Shakol Niabavaro, and this guy's listening and says, Amen. I mean, I heard that before, by the way.
On a tape?
From a tape?
Yeah. No, the guy's saying, the guy's listening to the tape, and the rabbi in the class, he doesn't see the rabbi. He's, before the class, he's saying the Berachan, whatever. The guy listening to the tape says, answers.
All right, let's find out what's going to happen. So all you people, whenever you listen to this recording, make sure you don't answer Amen.
Actually, they should be eating something so they can say.
No, I hear people answer, even on the CDs. Somebody was listening to a CD in a car.
They answered.
Why are you in the car with them?
It was a girl with me. I was driving her. She heard the
That's
rabbi
a new
say...
pickup?
Yeah, she heard the rabbi say...
That's funny.
I know, it's sad. It's very sad.
It's not something I would even like register in my mind to even like consider.
Well, now you know that you didn't can't.
Right, yeah, I mean, I know.
You're not even allowed to do it. Now it's totally out. לכן יש חלק לזה וזה גורם ממש נסתפר כמהרית אלגזי בספר סמחת יום טוב סימן נוטט אם האחד אינו בר חיובה ואמרינן זויה ועיין גם כן פרי מגדים משנה זין סימן שבט על פי הירושלמי he's giving every source he could think of to knock everything out זה במי בכותב במי בסעדים שלא נראה ובא אחר נתן על גרבו האיש ויעשה הכתב בשבת עין שמש כל זה נראה דאינו עניין לדוננו בכל הגרמפון הקלט בו אין לו עוד שום קשב שייכו לפעולת האיש שדבר בו בראשונה. There's absolutely no connection whatsoever. That's it. Once the guy recorded it, that recording is no longer a person and has no longer any sort of connection to the actual voice of the person. דאין הכל הנקלט כי אם סיור ותמונה בעלמא כהכתב הבואה של לבנה שכתבתי למה זה דומה? לתמונה פוטוגרפית. He goes, a recording is the same thing as a photograph, same thing as a picture. האם נאמר דהרואה את תמונת המלך או את תמונת חברו שלא ראהו 30 יום או י"ב חודש שיברך עליו, right, we have a din that if you see the king you have to make a beracha. If you didn't see, you know, a friend or somebody for a period of 30 days or 12 months, you have to make a beracha. So now, okay, I didn't see a person, and now they pull me out a picture of the guy 2 years later. Am I going to make a beracha? No, because it's not really him, you know. So same thing with the recording. It's not real. Have a daidelo. מהן המלך הבטא, למחשבתו וכוונתו של המשמיע וכוחו הזדו להו כבר. ולכמו שכושכן דאין להם מחשבה ולא כוונה, עיין להן. Obviously the person who recorded it has no כוונה for you to fulfill your obligation at this point, so that's totally it also. והגרמפון גרעת في منه והיא דבית כנסת של Alexandria שהבאתי לעיל ויסייד חוואתו. So now what's the connection to what I mentioned before about that old synagogue with the wave of the flags? הטעם הגם שלא היו שומעים, and over there they didn't hear it all. על כל פנים היו מתכוונים למספר הברכות כמו שכתב בית יוסף. The בית יוסף discussed it, and they knew they're counting the amount of berachot. They were expecting to hear berachot at this point. The Hazad is praying, knows that there's people back there that are fulfilling the obligation, etc. והש"ס כיוון להוסיעה והגיע במזווד ללא צריך כוונה שומע ומשמיע כתיקעת שופר מכל מקום בעי כוונה לברך אף לא בכוונה להוסיע עיין תרי ספק etc. בקורבן העדה לירושלמי is going through the sources again בערך השולחן לירושלמי בשנה זרונש ויאמין לו בעי כוונתה המברך היינו דווקא כוונה להוסיע אבל כוונה לברך צריך you have to make a ברכה ואין עיל סימן י"ג מה שאין כן המשמיע בגרמפון אף given בפעם ראשונה לשם ברכה, even though the guy may have had kavanah the first time when he recorded it, okay, or even to fulfill the obligation of those standing there, להוציא ידי אחרים, אין כוונה זו נמשכת תמיד לאותו כל הנקלט בגרמפון. The kavanah does not stay in limbo forever and ever and ever, you know, to fulfill the obligation of anybody who may ever listen to this recording at any place or time. Alright, that's an impossibility. In כוונה זו נמשכת תמיד לאותו כל הנקלט בגרמפון. וכבר פסקה. That's it, it's over, it ended. והכל הנקלט הוא סיור וחיקוי דווקא. And we said this is just an image. לכן יש להוכיח גם כן מדפריך הגמרא, יש בבית ברכות, נתכוון שומע ולא נתכוון משמיע הכי, משכחת לה לאב בתוקיע על ראשית דלמה, כאמן נמח נבוחר. במיתה דבת קול, חשיב קולנה. תיגון ששמע בת קולו של המשמיע. דבת קול אין כוונה. אלא ודאי דבת קול לא נקרא קול דמשמיע לאחי, למוקה ולא באחי. אם כן, נמסינו למדים דבת קול וכמו כן הגרמפון, so the gramophone is no different than a bat kol, להווה קול. This is not really a sound, הוא see את השומע to fulfill the obligation of the person listening, ומינן המה לעניין קול באישה, בהזכרת השם, לא חשיב קול, and for a situation of Kol Be'isha, obviously does not exist here at all. You can listen to any female recording, totally. And for Haskarat Shem Hashem, there's no Haskarat Shem Hashem. You're hearing a sound. It's not Haskarat Shem Hashem whatsoever. So now that we knocked out the whole concept of the gramophone, okay, of a record, of a tape, of a CD, of MP3, whatever, any sort of recording, that's gone. Now he's going to deal with radio and telephone. Again, radio in his day, everything was live. So obviously, if we're dealing with a recorded issue or a live session, the halakha will change.
Right, I forgot about that. It was all live back then.
It was all live.
Yeah, but even into the 40s, I think it was pretty much.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Sure.
Wow.
They couldn't record back then, early on?
It just wasn't a thing.
There were shows.
It was live radio. They would bring them in, bring the whole band in. It was a whole big thing.
Really?
You never
So
saw
live
movies
now
of
on
it?
the radio, you can answer?
Let's see what he says.
Okay, to jump the gun again?
It's only, we're almost done.
4 lines.
ואומנם ברדיו
Potation.
וטלפון. Watch what he says now. Regarding a radio and telephone. נראה ברור דאם המשמיע מתכוון לברכה והוציא ידי חובת כל השומע לו. If the person making beracha has kavanah, okay, and he has the kavanah to fulfill obligation for all those listening, יעשו השומעים ידי חובתם אף בתקיעת שופר ומגילlah. Okay? Pick up your phone on Rosh Hashanah. Hey buddy, I'm blowing for you. And you blow, and the guy is in Japan, he's stuck there on his business trip, he heard the shofar, he's good.
That's funny.
That's what he's telling you. Okay, same thing for megillah.
Right.
Okay?
So you don't have to go house to house anymore.
You don't go house to house, you don't have to have ladies reading, they could just have, everybody Skype in.
Yeah.
It's got to be different, though.
One second, can we finish this first?
Update the technology, yeah.
Can we finish? ياسو השומעים ידי חובתם אף בתקיעת שופר ומגילlah וכל שכן במזוות אחרות התלויות בקול ובדיבור, and all the more so with any other mitzvah that is connected to voice and speech. דאין ריחוק המקום מעכב, the distance is not a factor. כיוון דהכל נשמע היטב, because the sound is heard clearly. ונקרא כוחו דמשמיע, this is the actual strength of the sound of the person uttering it and the person listening, but from both ends. מואר היטב מכל מה שכתבתי. I don't need to explain it again, because everything I brought till now was crystal clear.
Well, he just brought...
We're gonna let's finish, and then we'll go back.
Okay.
That's why to compare it to what he's saying now to Tokeva board, though. That case... Okay.
Tokeva board is a whole different scenario.
No, but he brought that in, though.
It's a whole different issue.
He brought that as one of his,
But he didn't. He didn't actually bring it.
That's true.
ואגב, ראיתי לבאר פה מה שכתוב ביומה תחת עמוד ב' מהי ארז ססמגור, מהי ססמגור בת קול, עיין שם. I'm not familiar with this.
Sasmegor?
Yeah.
Saskar.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can. It's not a Hebrew word, right?
יומה תחת עמוד. מהי ארז ססמגור, מהי ססמגור בת קול. עיין שם פירוש רש"י ובערוך שפירושם קשה בעיניי. He has difficulty with Rashi and the Aruch. איזה שם כזה היה נקרא הארז? This is... No, basically he's telling you over here, he goes, well, what kind of name is this for the Erez? The Erez is the cedar.
Yeah.
Right? وما نفكر منا ببيئوريم إلا كيفان the Erez يدوى كبار شمولانو. What was the point of this Tesmigar? We already know what an Erez is. Everybody knows what an Erez is. Everybody knows great cedar trees. ועוד שמילת סס שהוא העש, זה שם עברי בישעיה נון א'. ונראה לעניות דעתי ששפת מגור היה איזה מין ידוע של חסוסרת, חסוסרת מעץ ארז. Okay, it was like a it was a known type of trumpet made out of cedar wood, מעץ ארז, שהשמיע שתי קולות, קול נמוך מהשני. It would give off two sounds, one lower than the other. عند دبري سسقونا بشبات كفحيت مع السبائين شونين فهيتها حسرت هي مشميعة لمرحوك هربي. And through this particular trumpet you could hear a very long distance. وزي ديمو أوتا لبات كول معين باحا يسحاق عرق بات كول شيبي مكوزري شني بكوة حربيئي. كوزري شني is a book written by who? Remember? Acham David Nieto. Acham David Nieto was rabbi in...
Sam knew that.
Rabbi was not in Italy, no.
England.
Very good. England and London. Yeah, rabbi of the Spanish Portuguese. And he wrote a book called Kuzari Sheni, or Mahane Dan Kuzari Sheni. So it was like a continuation of the Kuzari to deal with other concepts and other issues that people had questions about. The fourth argument. Mesofrim Romais Shel Alexander Mogdon Musuperim. Okay. And they say what you call Romaim Shel Alexander Mogdon Hayta Hasoseret Shehishmiya Gimel Parsaot. How long is a parsa? We've discussed this in the past. Parsa is a fair distance. And you could hear distance of 3 parsaot. Echulei Ayin Sham. Ve'ulai zehu she'amru b'yoma yudhet yemine kiruz she'kolon shma' gimel parsaot. V'chulei. אולי על ידי חסוסרת תזכיר לעיל שהייתה ידועה להם אז. Now why he brought this over here, I have no idea.
What is that?
Because it came for Agab. Out of nowhere. Oh, by the way, I wanted to throw this little tidbit.
What does that tell you? What is the case about the Chasoseret? What are they trying to prove?
I'm not sure. We're going to have to... we'll have to look into it. But the point is, his conclusion is that we have different types of electronic sounds, if you will. Okay, you have either a recorded sound or a live sound. And for the recorded sound, we can't say that we can find a way to use it to allow it to fulfill any obligation. But for a live sound, either the live sound is dependent upon the person being in front of you and you could see him, or that is a non-necessity, and as long as the voice is clear, and of course not recorded, doesn't make a difference how far of a distance both parties are from one another.
Person can listen to it on the
other listen end. To one person could say it on one end, the other person could listen to the other end, and as long as they both have kavanah, there's no problem, and you can fulfill the obligation.
Havdalah,
this is
Havdalah also?
Havdalah, you need to see the ish.
You need to see the ish.
Okay?
Right.
But basically, this is what he's saying.
Okay.
And he told you, straight out, he told you shofar,
megillah.
He told you megillah,
Right.
He told you kiryat shema,
Right.
He told you tefillah, he told you whatever he told you. This is, again, his opinion. Obviously, not everybody agrees, and I'm sure in today's day and age, most will disagree.
Right.
Okay? But We have to understand, this is the development of halacha. This is the way our hachamim...
What about a tent for minyan?
Where did he live?
You gotta be able to phone. What about that?
Where did he live?
I have 9 guys. Oh, call up. Did you crowd beat?
Where did he live? He lived
Can I
all
put you
over
on
the place.
speakerphone?
He was in...
Is that what about that?
What? No, you have to have a guy from minyan. You have to have a minyan present. What do you mean? Nothing to do with it.
Yeah, he's present.
He's present.
I have
He's
his
not
picture.
present. He's
No.
You have his picture on
Video
Skype.
conference.
No, you have to...
Not the same video.
Beam him in.
Yeah. Basically, you say if
He
you're
said
on the phone.
he's
for
saying
you,
no. He says you have to be present.
If you're on the phone and you
You have to be
said
present for a
that
megillah, I
you ate
understand.
something, and I said
You
amen,
don't have to see.
That's fine.
that's fine.
Right, but it's not a minyan. Minyan, you have to
No,
be present.
no, I know. When you're on a different issue,
No, minyan, you have to...
I think you're pushing the envelope there.
No, there's a
So
problem.
maybe I could get out
Yeah,
of.
if you're not even in the room, it's,
Yeah. You gotta
if you're not in the room, it's you can't be counted.
Right. Right. I mean, yeah,
Right?
Today with
What if
digital,
you have a window?
digital technology.
So you can answer Kaddish over the phone.
yeah, right.
You can answer Kaddish over
You
the
can
phone
answer.
live.
Yes, you can
Right.
answer.
Right.
However,
Why? Here, it's on. We're running.
We're going.
When discussing, listening to live broadcasts of Selihot on the radio, he allows you to answer. But, as far as I know, Chamaria does not allow you to fill the obligation of megillah through listening through a telephone or radio.
Sorry, what was this rabbi's name again?
Ya'akob
Toledano.
Moshe Toledano.
what's the reason he gives?
We gotta read it. So, he was more than just he was a lot of different things. We'll get into history afterwards. I didn't make copies of Yahavedak. We can do it now. We'll pull it out. Yeah.
Interesting thing about
Okay. So we saw the teshoubah of YAM HAGADOL. Now, Hamad Yosef has a teshoubah in Yahavedat, Volume 3, Siman Nun Dalet. His question really revolves around the concept of using a microphone to hear the megillah. But he touches upon the other issues as well. I'm not going to read the entire teshoubah because it's not the time and place for it. But he gets to a certain point and he starts saying like this: וכן כאן שהקול שעל ידי הטלפון דרכו לשאת כשהוא מעורב ולא כקולו של האיש המדבר ממש. So he's starting off right away that the voice that you're hearing through a telephone is not a real voice, it's a scrambled voice.
Scrambled?
Scrambled.
Oh,
Okay?
scrambled.
Now let's backtrack. He's bringing this from Minhat al-Azar. I don't know who Minhat al-Azar is.
And nothing to do.
Okay? I can tell you from the name of the book, it's definitely not Sefaradi. No, it's not. I would know it. I would recognize it. So he tells you, Sheilut Shuwot Minhat al-Azar Hilik Beit, Siman Ayin Beit. Dan Bemi Shomea Derech HaTelefon Kol Shofar B'Loshana Umekra Megillah B'Purim. He deals with the topic of a person who would hear via telephone the Shofar B'Loshana or the Megillah B'Purim. He fulfills the obligation or not. And he writes straight out, as far as Shofar, Lo Yasa. He did not fulfill his obligation. And that goes back to what Mark was asking before, because he says, why? Because it goes back to the similar scenario in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, Hat-Tokiyah L'toch HaBor, or L'toch HaBor. Okay, if you heard the shofar, if you fulfill the obligation or not. In other words, if it's an actual sound of the shofar, or if it's some sort of echo. And he's saying, also here, when you hear any sound through the telephone, it is a scrambled. That's the word he's using. He's using scrambled sound. Okay, it's mi'urab, it's mixed up.
Muffled. Yeah.
It's not, but it's not
mixed
muffled.
up.
It's not
Oh,
muffled.
right, mixed up. Okay.
Mixed up. ולא כקולו של האיש המדבר ממש. It's not like the actual sound of the person. ובוודאי שגם קול השופר יהיה מעורב וישתנה כדרך הברת הטלפון. לפיכך לא יעשה. That's for the shofar. But for the megillah, he says, חקרתי, I investigated, בכל הסדרים שכתב הרב השואל, ולא מצאתי כדי לאסור. I found no reason to forbid the megillah. שבאמת, במגילה לא נפסל קולו של הקורא אם נתעבה בהעברת הטלפון בשמיעה בריחוק מקום. Because we don't have the same law of התוקע לתוך הבור, of hearing the sound deeper or higher pitched or lower or higher. Makes no difference. So he leaves it at that. This is min had al-azar. Again, we don't know who he is. At least I don't know who he is. Then he quotes another guy, Rabbi Yosef Engel. Okay, Rabbi Yosef Engel. B'Sefer Gilunei Hashas. Also dealt with shofar and megillah telephone. And he writes, שאין הקול של המדבר עם חברו הוא הבא לאוזן השומע. The sound that you're hearing, okay, when a person speaks to you, you're not really hearing the sound. You're getting what? Airwaves are moving. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not really hearing the person's sound. Nobody ever actually hears the person's voice directly. It's constantly, it's airwaves that are moving and, causing that sound to travel and to come to you in a certain way. שאין הקול של חברו הוא הבא לאוזן השומע אלא כל המדבר מרעיד חלק האוויר הסמוך לפיו וחלק זה לסמוך אליו וכן הלאה כסדר זה עד שנרעד חלק האוויר שבאוזן השומע. The sound will keep moving and moving and moving until it comes and it vibrates within your own ear for you to hear that sound. Okay? And this is all girama. Any hearing that you're doing is like, it's only girama. Any sound that you hear is through a different medium. He goes, but we have no place to judge between regular hearing and hearing through a phone. Even though regular hearing is girama, okay, but when you're hearing through a telephone, maybe it's a double girama. It's a double vibration. Okay, and it's not a natural thing. So let's just avoid it. Again, this is not the way the Sephardi poskim look at things. Then he quotes Sheilot Shabbat, Haye Aryeh. Who's Haye Aryeh? Don't know. Never heard of him either. Okay, I don't mean to poke fun at them. I'm just saying they're not our hachamim that we're familiar with. Okay, and he writes that you don't fulfill obligation of shofar through the telephone because any mitzvah that Torah told you to do with kavanah, you have to do it without any difference in the way it was done when the Torah established it. Again, that's not the way of the Sephardi Hachamim. Weird. And then to further strengthen that point, this rabbi, whoever was this Haye Aryeh, quotes somebody else, his grandfather it seems to be, Bar Liwai, and he says the same thing with machine-made masa. No, you don't fulfill the obligation because it's not the way when the mitzvah was established. So it's no good. Okay, that was section 1.
Just put everybody out of business.
Yeah, right. Or put a lot more people in business.
Right.
So now, Chaim goes to the next section. He says, really though, based upon all those experts that are really knowledgeable in the technicalities of electricity, the sound that is heard by the listeners via telephone or via microphone is not really the sound of the speaker. It's another sound that is transferred to them through this electric current, okay, which comes to them based upon the flapping and the waving of the membrane that is in the phone or in the microphone. You ever opened up the telephone way back when, with the mouthpiece, you see that membrane, you remember that thing?
Yeah. Took off the piece.
Yeah, we all took off that piece, especially when you want to talk to somebody, right. You want to sketch something, you want to get to, you don't hear me.
Classic.
You're too young to remember this.
Yeah, he doesn't remember.
I'm looking at his face, he doesn't know.
When you screw it off?
Yeah, it was real.
Off the mouthpiece.
It had that magnet on the bottom of it.
I remember.
With those phones.
Yeah, the old rotary phone.
That's funny.
My number was 998.
Yeah, mine was 998-3113.
Yeah, well, basically the same. He's third. 998-346.
3113. And if you made a mistake.
Hang up! You gotta wait, do it again. Busy signal, do it again. Beep, beep,
no redial, no full call waiting, no nothing. One line and you're done.
That was it.
Nobody had anything. Had a phone on the wall. And
you're
lucky you had the phone in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That was
lucky we had the phone.
Everybody had the phone.
Right in the
We
kitchen.
had it.
Kitchen wall. Had to be there.
And if you had two phones, you were Hashub or something.
I had one in the bedroom.
Right.
Your mother's bedroom. That's funny. Anyway. So this is talking about the movement and the flapping of this membrane. Okay, so now, can you fulfill your obligation or not, since this is not really the real sound? So he's going to go through, obviously, a bunch of other sources. Again, no sources that we're familiar with whatsoever. I'm just glancing at the page. I'm not going to read the whole page again, because again, he goes through a whole different set of she'elot shuvot. He's not using any real sebara without looking at them first. And I don't see it. It's just very, very different. We have to read this at length to really understand and to give it justice.
What's the man in it?
Siman nun dalet. Gimel. I'm just looking at it. There's no reason for me to just summarize it all. It seems, though, that based upon this, Rabbi Sebi Pesach Frank, who was a tremendous Hacham, he was the Rabbi of Yerushalayim, it seems that he did allow it. And Chacham is disagreeing with him over here.
Allow it for what? For shofar or megillah or?
Megillah at the very least.
Uh-huh.
And he seems to be arguing with him. But if he's telling you that the microphone is okay at the end, so why wouldn't the telephone be? But then again, we know Chawandia's argument is that as long as you could be able to hear it without the megillah, without the microphone, and the microphone just enhancing it, it's okay. You're not really relying on the microphone.
So you couldn't do it like in Madison Square Garden. Megillah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no way.
So you're saying, we'll copy it for next week. He's touching over here upon the gramophone issue. He doesn't quote YAM HAGADOL at all. At least I don't see it.
No, he's going to quote a Moroccan? God forbid.
Oh, wait, what's this at the end? Hold on. What do we got there here? One second.
It's Moroccan.
Give me 1 second.
No, sure.
وضرب أيام أكون لدون قبل بيجا هي يشين سمخ نمنيه لشدة سبوش الكل صوت كيف شعل يديها رام كل شمعيم تكل شو عبا يوتم يقولوها رجال شدة شدة سبول نمساش كل عحين مع ربه بلو يسيد حواه ولا من الإيد في عكار كموش كتابمو في بوفن كزي يسيم دي حواه موش يكين فشود هجاون منكتش مش شود من حد العزار. Okay, so this من حد العزار is the gaon from munkatch. Munkatch.
Great.
I don't know what Munkatch was,
Where
but
is it?
probably in Poland or Russia or something like that.
How do you spell that?
Nah.
Munkatch.
וכן הגאון רבי סבי פסח פרנק משחרונים. וראה עוד בזה בשביל שבועות מערכי לב שולסן ובהשפעתו בשבועות ספר. בשבועות אהרון שהם. At the end, בשאלות שבועות ים הגדול טולדאנו. בשאלות שבועות מועדים וזניים. בשאלות משנה הלכות. ובשאלות שבועות מקווה המים. ויקוס מקווה המים. מקווה המים זה במשה מלכה, who as far as I know allows it. Alright, so God willing, for next week we're going to make copies of this Yehavedah to look at it further. I'll go through it first and just highlight his points, and then we'll look at Bib Moshe Malka on the topic.
Munkatch is in Russia.
There you go, Munkatch is in Russia. And that's it, so
I knew that.
if the Russians say we don't do it, we can't do it.
When the mood hits here,
So many Russians in Brooklyn, dude.
They're all over the place.